So here we have our Arella Acoustic Element 360 upgrade for the subwoofer of a Model Y. What's included in this package is a replacement 8-inch woofer, the adapter ring so everything bolts into the factory position in the factory enclosure, our quick sync wiring harness, which is 100% plug and play, so we're not cutting or modifying anything in the vehicle, our amplifier bracket, and our cover panel that will go into the car and basically cover where this is going. Now let's see what it's like. So before we get started with the subwoofer installation, the first thing we want to do is make sure we open all 4 doors of the vehicle, including the hatch, because obviously we'll be working back there. And 2, we want to power down the vehicle just to make sure everything's off. So we go to the safety menu, we scroll all the way down to the bottom, press power off, and power off again. Now the car is completely powered down. First thing that we do, obviously we want to remove the floor piece. This just lifts out, take it out. Once we have that out, we're going to want to remove this. So we want to get our panel popper, get underneath the panel, and just kind of start lifting up. You'll hear it clip. You can set that down. Now you just want to be careful of the weather stripping and just start lifting it little by little. So now that we got the floor out and our little cover panel out, we're going to get these side panels out, at least this one and that one, because we need to get this out. So all we do is lift up and it just unpops. Really simple. So now that we got our little side covers out, we're going to want to pull our tub out. To pull the tub out, we have a couple little clips here that we're going to pop. Not a big deal. Just get something to lift underneath of it. It slides right out. Once we have the 2 out here, we're going to have 2 more additional right here and here, and we'll pop those out as well. Now that we have the tub out completely, the last piece that we're going to need to take out back here before we move to the back seat is this little piece. One more time, we've got one more clip here, pops up, comes out, and the piece will then now just lift up and out of the vehicle. Now that everything is out in the back that we need for the time being, it's time to take the bottom of the seat out. Luckily, this comes out pretty simple. We just literally lift up, it will come out, and then we're going to have a single plug to disconnect over here. So now that we have the bottom of the back seat removed, it's time to remove this lower panel here. We're just going to lift up on it, and it's just got little pops that it locks in with. Now that we have the lower plastic piece removed, we're going to fold down the seat right here and let it sit because we need to remove this panel, which we're going to start from the rear of the car. So now we're ready for the removal of the side panel here. To do this, we want one clip here that we're going to pop, take out, and then we're just going to start working the panel out. So now to get the last part of the panel, we're going to have a few clips here and a couple clips hidden down here. So we just continue popping this. It's going to come out. Now your panel is completely loose. So now that the full side panel is removed, we can see the factory subwoofer enclosure and amplifier. So next we want to do is remove 4 10mm bolts. 1 is for the ground and 3 are for the brackets connecting the amplifier to the wall. The reason we're removing the amplifier is so we can get to all the screws of the woofer without any issues. Once all the bolts are out, the first thing we want to do is unclip this wire from the amplifier. This will give us all the ability and room to do everything that we need to do. So now that we have our amplifier out of the way, we can uninstall the factory subwoofer. We're going to want to use a T25 bit to be able to get the 4 screws out that lock the woofer in. So here we have our power kit. We're going to need a couple things out of this right away just to get going on the woofer. The first thing is the subwoofer connection. This is going to connect to the back of the woofer on how we wire everything. On the woofer itself, you'll notice it has a black and a red, or vice versa to what I just said. Our wires have a black and a red. Really simple, red goes to red, black goes to black. We want to make sure that's correct on both sides because there is red and black here and there is red and black here. If one of these is backwards to the other, we will not get sound out of this woofer. We want to make sure both reds go to red, both blacks go to black. With our adapter here, we've got 2 sets of screws. We have 4 screws that will mount the adapter to go into the larger holes that replace the original factory screws that held in the woofer. And then we have our stainless screws, which is what we'll use to lock the woofer into the adapter. So with the subwoofer wire here, you'll notice the factory wiring came through a groove channel here. We're once again going to reuse that groove channel, slide our wire in, and follow right back there. Once everything's in that channel, like I said, we want to leave ourselves about 12 inches of space. Our adapter plate, notice how it has the top here, we'll locate up there. We also have the locating pins as well, and this will go right in and mount just like the factory woofer. We want to use the new screws that came with the kit. Now this is the T20 Torx bit, and we'll go right back in just like the factory. Once we have our woofer connected, it's ready to mount it. So the silver screws that came with will require a 2.5 millimeter hex to be able to lock it in. Once you have the woofer remounted, you can then install the amplifier back into its location. So now that the amplifier is back in its spot, not mounted yet, because we are going to still need to ground our amplifier, which is going to go where the factory ground is, it's time to plug in our input. Nice thing is, this plugs right into the factory plug, and then we'll just make its way down to the bottom with the other subwoofer connector. Now that we got all our subwoofer connections made in the back, it's time to run our power wire. So the first thing we're going to do is, this is a little plastic cover. We're just going to lift it up out of the way, which is going to expose the 12 volt connection to the main battery. Our power wire harness here is basically going to follow this main harness up and over until the back of the car. So what we want to do is just start running it and laying it in that spot, and then we'll go back and zip tie it here shortly. Now that we have the wire running along the factory loom, we can go ahead and make our power connection. Now, we just want to make sure that there's no fuse in here at the moment because we're not connecting anything. So we can go ahead and lift this up. We're going to want to use a 13 millimeter socket and be able to take this off. Now, this is connected right next to a ground, so be careful that you don't hit the ground. So now that we got our connection made, I'm going to go ahead and zip tie it. Now I like to make 2 connections right here that keeps the fuse available, and it keeps it angled towards me a little bit. So that way, if I ever need to access it, it's a really easy thing. And we just lock it down like so. Now we got the fuse here, we can get to it at any time. Now that we got all the power wire ran back here, we can go ahead and ground our system. So we're going to use the factory ground that we disconnected earlier, and we're going to go ahead and reconnect that. Now that we have the ground in, we're going to route the wire and follow the factory loom back down to the bottom. Once again, we're going to zip tie this into spin. So now that we have everything ran and connected, we want to connect the amplifier just to test. We are not installing the amplifier yet, but we want to make sure everything's working before we put all the paneling back together. The last thing we want to do is put it all together, find out we missed a connection or something's wrong. So we're going to test that now. So this is our amplifier bracket. The first thing that we want to do is connect our input. Now we've already connected the input to the amplifier, and you'll understand why once the paneling goes back in. But basically this is our input, so we're just going to plug that into the wire that's sticking out of the amplifier. Now this is the wire that's coming from the original subwoofer with the white plug on it. Like so. Now we can plug our subwoofer in to where it says speaker on the amplifier. And we can plug our power connector in where it says power. Now the connectors go down. Now we can just set the whole piece down in here and install the fuse so we can verify everything's working first. When we go to put in the fuse, we're probably going to see a small spark, which is just the amplifier charging. Now we can put the cover back over. Now we can power up the car and verify everything's working. So we've gone through, we've tested everything, make sure it all works. We remounted our amplifier back in, and we want to leave all our wiring down in the corner here. The reason for that is we're going to put the original panel back on, and our amplifier rack will go down there, and then the cover panel will go in it to block out the area. So it's nice that you only lose this little cubby, and you'll have a flat floor coming across. Once you have the whole side panel back in, we're going to put the lower panel back in. Now what we need to do is make sure that we keep the wiring up, so that way it can sit on top of this. So this is just going to drop in here like it did originally. We keep our wiring up. Goes all the way right back in its original position, and we put our last clip back in. We're going to go ahead and make the connections on our amplifier. So one of them's a little tricky. We're going to have to reach our arm in here. It does take 2 hands, but it only plugs in one way. Then we have our other connections. So the last piece is we're going to put our cover panel in. This is going to go ahead and slide in directly on top of the amplifier and then pressure fit into place and lock everything into spot. As you can see, the whole car has been finally put back together now. Now it's time to go enjoy our sub. I hope you do as well. Have a great day.